Good morning, Australia. This is the NFL Brekkie Show presented by the Next Gen Ford Everest. Conquer every day in the Next Gen Ford Everest. I'm Phil Murphy alongside Laurie, Horesh. And Laurie, we said last week, week 15, we looked ahead. We normally don't make this a preview show, but we said week 15, a lot of questions are going to be answered. A lot of things that we wonder may get something of an answer. We called it the 7 wonders of week 15. Week 15 proved wonderful. We should have taken the over on 7 wonders. Perhaps the best week of the NFL season thus far, and that's saying something. There's always competitive parity and storylines and terrific athletic feats. But Laz, I'd stack up the most recent slate of games against any that we've seen thus far.
What couldn't you ask for in an NFL week? From one, we got weekend football. We got Sunday football, Saturday over where US, Sunday in Australia, which is always a treat. Does pose some challenges when you're trying to juggle family or friends or obligations or whatever that might be. Maybe you work on the weekends, but always good to get a little Sunday sprinkling of football. We got snow games. We got comebacks. We got 2 AFC heavyweights or contenders with the Bills and the Dolphins putting on a classic. We saw the biggest comeback in history. We're going to get into all these things. Thank you, Kirk Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings. Sorry, Matt Ryan. Yes, it happened again. That just started us off. Not to mention we had a fantastically tense game when you get division rivals going toe-to-toe on Thursday Night Football. And then yesterday, overtime games, last-second winners, last-second missed kicks. If you're watching Red Zone via via Watch ESPN app in this region with your login credentials for subscription services, you got the witching hour once and twice in the early slate and the late slate. That was going off. We saw a massive comeback from a team like the Cincinnati Bengals. It looked like the gauntlet was getting thrown down against them by finally a clicking Tom Brady and his weapons, sitting around like this is some sort of, slam poetry circle here right now. But we thought, oh my God, are we actually seeing the holidays have come and are we actually seeing Tom Brady and his family coming together? The football family, I should say. And the weapons finally clicking with chemistry. Is that happening? And then Joe Burrow and his friends and his cohorts there from Cincinnati put a stop to that. So there was it delivered on all fronts. As you said, we should have taken the over on 7 wonders. But what a way to get into it is. It's late December. We're in the holiday swing of things here. I'm sure around some of your offices around the world, if you haven't stopped working yet, the Christmas parties are happening, the half days are happening. It's a little more casual. It's still, we got a little cold that's come in, just a late December, a little bit. It's only 20 degrees in Sydney. That's about as frosty as you're going to see this time of year. So I've got the cardigan out along with a little Patrick Mahomes number. But we're getting into the holiday swing of things, Phil. We're going to kick it. We're not a big preview show, but we're going to look ahead at what the rest of the season has in store for us. And as you mentioned on Twitter last night, my completely football nuts, mad, and somewhat creative noggin got to thinking about what we could drum up for a holiday week special on, the NFL Brekkie Show.
Yeah, Laz, it is week 15. And you're playing about 20 degrees in Sydney. It is -9 currently outside my hotel room in Green Bay, Wisconsin, as we ready for Monday Night Football. Tuesday midday, if you're watching Sydney, Melbourne, kickoff just after noon between the Rams and the Packers. But Laz, it is the season, and it is the season of holiday movies, and those perhaps with some holiday tropes that we've seen, some regular themes in plot development. So you and I looked at the NFL storylines to watch. We looked at movies we've seen time and again, perhaps just in passing, and then we end up sitting there watching the same thing play out over and over again, different actors, different cities, but always a hint of snow with holiday-themed movies. So, Laz, one of the plot tropes that we see is the bitter cynic who discovers the magic of Christmas. For whom does that qualify in the NFL?
Yeah, we've seen this play out time and time again, whether it's the hardworking kind of, mom or dad, maybe it's a single parent situation and, there's just no time for the magic of Christmas and something comes along and shows them the spirit of the holidays. I had a good think about this one. And for me, I mentioned the rich amount of football that we just had come coursing through our veins over the last couple of days, and how that's, hyped up some narratives, how it's set some teams on course. for what their destiny for the 2022 season might be. And when it comes to the bitter cynic that's found the magic of the holiday season, I'm going to go to a place that I'm sure enjoys plenty of snow this time of year. And I'm going to go to Minnesota, and I'm going to go to the Vikings. Now, I don't think in any way is Kirk Cousins one of the more cynical, darker presences that we see with a mic in front of him in the NFL. But more look at the Vikings as a whole. What they were under the Zimmer administration for so long, this very in many ways dated offense that didn't seem to want to take advantage of the amazing offensive talent that existed. They played hard-nosed defense, but this was run, run, run. It was not an overly aggressive or explosive offense by any means, despite, what might be residing in your fantasy lineup wearing purple and gold, and you thinking if they could just unleash this a little more. What we've seen over the course of this season, the addition of TJ Hawkinson, and what we've seen with the new regime there with Kevin O'Connell coming in and taking over the reins there in Minnesota, is an increasingly aggressive, an increasingly downfield, an increasingly magical offense, if you will. For Kirk Cousins, yes, that you can look at simple metrics there and just how far his average yards of targets, or how average air yards per throw. But you can also look, there's occasional off-script creation going on here. Kirk Cousins has always been capable of getting hot, especially when he was pointed in a certain direction. Things were on script, and it was go, 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 go. Get to this read, bang, get to this read, bang. And the weapons were providing those windows, and we're going to work through this. And it was like this incredibly well-functioning metronome that could power through. But what we're seeing now is they've been challenged with adverse circumstances, and whether it's the energy from within the locker room, whether it's the energy from and the belief instilled from the coaching staff, whether it's the belief that comes from having the best wide receiver in football, Justin Jefferson, on your team at any given time, not to mention Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, veteran old man who can still win the old man game stuff, and I mentioned TJ Hawkinson coming in. This team has a ceiling that it didn't before. They have a little more flair. They have a little more magic and creativity, and we see that in the largest comeback in NFL history, overcoming the 33-point deficit that they faced. And I think for Minnesota Vikings fans, no, your defense isn't the most electric unit. There's been more imposing purple people eaters over the decades, but from an offensive standpoint, it feels like over the last couple of months, we've seen not kicking the door in, but we've removed the ceiling. We're letting the snow fall this holiday season over where you are, or letting the 30-degree sunshine fall, as it looks like it's going to be in Sydney this coming weekend for Christmas. And this is, you can feel the relief in this team. It doesn't feel like a tense unit. And when after the game, when Kirk Cousins was asked, it was pointed out to him that this was the biggest comeback in NFL history. You've overturned the biggest margin or the biggest deficit. You saw him take a minute. He goes, just give me a second, let me process that. You can feel, yes, they've been doubted. Are they good? For us, they've been, in our Mafia episode, they were our rat team that you couldn't trust. But from an offensive standpoint, I think where they have been to where they are now, the cynic has found the magic of the season. And that magic in an NFC that looks shaky as anything. Jalen Hurts is potentially missing this week with a shoulder injury. The Cowboys are flaky and doing Cowboys things in December. And the San Francisco 49ers have the 262nd overall pick in the NFL draft playing quarterback. And a truly dominant unit could be enough to take you through the NFC.
Well, Boz, it's hard to argue with that. My bitter cynic, and I told you before the show I didn't have one. I lied. My bitter cynic, who has found the magic of the season, is me. It is Victory Monday, Laws, for the Denver Broncos. It is finally Victory Monday, with Brett Rippon under center, getting blitzed. 10 for 12 passing against the blitz, 83%. Russell Wilson for the season, 53% passing against the blitz. Laz, I've discovered the magic of the season. I'm watching Brett Rippon throw 14 for 17 outside the numbers. I'm watching Latavius Murray go for 130 yards and a touchdown, something we haven't seen somebody do in a Broncos shirt since Phillip Lindsay in 2018. They're running on first down. I know you were Mr. Pass on first down, but Arizona was not adjusting and routinely giving Denver 2nd and 4, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6 opportunity. Nathaniel Hackett keen to continually take advantage, as was Brett Rippon, a very efficient operation under center. If I could just block the record of the team that's underneath the logo on the little lower score bug and just watch them operate. I see a capable backup quarterback of the future. I see a team that's been decimated by injury, but still playing with heart in week 15 with nothing for which to play. Laws have discovered the magic of the season. It is Victory Monday in Denver.
And you and your fellow Broncos fans deserve a little holiday cheer for what has been one of the most disappointing seasons compared to hopes and expectations. Division rivalries and fierce rivalries in the NFL are what they are. But when you do see friends or colleagues and close ones going through, a tough time with the franchises seemingly stuck in their own mistakes as the Denver Broncos, a big victory that has nothing to do with Russell Wilson in particular.
Victory
there you
Tuesday,
go. He's wearing it all week. Thankfully, deodorant is a constant staple of the Phil Murphy regime, so no dramas there. On that note, of course, friend of the show, Brad Bolt, is Russ now the most expensive backup in NFL history? Only 60% tongue-in-cheek comment. Phil, care to answer that one?
I wouldn't say that. Teams have seen Brett Rippon before, and again, who is the opponent? The Arizona Cardinals with lame duck head coach Cliff Kingsbury. It seems no Kyler Murray. The only people I feel bad for at all are those who back the under. Because the total was 38. It was 3-0 after one quarter, 6-3 at halftime. We get 20 points in the fourth to land on 39. And other than that, the celebration, Brad, we're not worried about the future. We're enjoying the present. Monday here in the U.S. A Monday reserved for victory. Merry Christmas.
And just following up there, just from, we've just got emojis just supporting you that came in. Yeah, there you go. There it is, the holiday flex. That's a treat, no matter whether you're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is this time of year. Happy holidays from Phil flexing over there. Okay, moving on to our next category here as my creativity got the best of me. Okay, the next movie trope, something that we've seen over and over again. And some of these, I love it when you get like three of them stacked up in the same movie. The small-time homecoming teaches a hotshot what really matters in life. So, the slick suit wearing, maybe he or she capri pants offering with a little ankle and then no socks, leather shoes type of stylings, gets the heads up that it's time to go home for Christmas. It's time to, or for the holidays, time to go see family and friends. And maybe there's been some adversity in their life for the first time in a while, or maybe they've hit a rough patch and going home is what teaches them what really matters in this crazy thing we call life. So, Phil, I'll throw to you first for this one. What came to mind for you, the small town homecoming that sets the big shot back on a more substantial, fulfilling path in his life or her life?
Well, Oz, what do you want to be in this holiday season? You want to be surrounded by those you love. Unfortunately for Tom Brady, and I'm not going to punch below the belt, he was not surrounded by a capable offensive line in the second half against the Bengals. Pressured 7 times. On those 7 pressures, he went 1 for 6 with 3 turnovers, 2 interceptions thrown, and a fumble lost. Part of 4 consecutive turnovers for Tom Brady. We haven't seen him do that in some time, leading to 21 Cincinnati points. The Bengals' average drive started at the plus 37. So Tom Brady in his career with a 17-point lead at any point, 89-0 at home, now 89-1. First time we've ever seen that from Tom Brady. So Tom realized that the hot shot going to a smaller town, learning that it is important to be surrounded by those you love, your offensive line. But ultimately, Laws, if they can get to a divisional title, all is well that ends well for TB12, and at least they can say, you know what, an 8-9 season, if it ends in a divisional title and a home playoff game, it'll be a funky footnote. People won't be nearly as disappointed as they would be if this Bucs team somehow missed the playoffs in this division.
I think when I look at this, this is a team with the Bucs that has obviously sustained a longer rough patch. There's certainly some hotshot big city elements there, but they've sustained a longer rough patch. I'm going a little more short-sighted here, and I'm going to, if you go by, you have a look at the comments and the memes, the imagery, the videos on social media. One of the true hotshot operations has been the Miami Dolphins. What's taken over there, their passing attack, speed, and Mike McDaniel in particular. a new age coach, incredibly relatable, not just to his players, but to fans, to the public, to the media, a very different vibe at press conferences. But they have hit a rough patch. They've dropped 3 games on the trot, and their offense, there's a lot of positives to take out of their loss against the Bills. They showed the steel, the metal to come back after falling down early. They showed different ways to win, and that's where I want to touch on the small town homecoming and lessons that the Dolphins have. This has been, obviously, the passing game has been at the centerpiece of all this. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle to a Tagovailoa. But he comes from this Shanahan tree, right? He's one of the disciples from this offense. And when it comes to an element that's been missing from Miami, it has been the consistently dominant, creative, and explosive running game throughout the season. But we started to see the little hint of it. That was one of the pivots they offered against the Bills. Raheem Mostert, having some big explosive plays, some good solid gains up the middle, and wasn't alone with some of the other backfield operators coming in and carving off some chunk gains there. This is like the hotshots in the big city. He or she has, maybe they've just been dumped. There's been a relationship breakdown right before the holidays, and they get an email from an old friend, just something to warm their heart. Say, why don't you come back to town, come back home, and come get back to your roots a little bit, get back on track. They've had that email or that message. They've flown home. They've started to get those first steps to back on the right track, which is what we saw in the second half from the Dolphins. And perhaps the rest of the way, we see that as the big counterpunch that the Dolphins have against teams that are starting to challenge that kind of intermediate middle area of the field where their receivers have been so dangerous, where the passing game's been so dangerous, where Tua loves to operate and operates with speed, timing, and kind of devilish efficiency. That's the pivot that we see. That's what I expect and I hope that we get from the Dolphins. That, after soaring as high and being as hyped up as possible through the first half of the season, they've hit their adversity, they've hit their rough patch. And we talk about homecomings. I'm just pulling up the Dolphins' schedule the rest of the way. We talk about small town homecomings. Boxing Day here, Christmas over there. They do happen to go. Or they do happen to be visited by a team in the Green Bay Packers that have a little bit of history, have a little bit of small town energy, and also have a little bit of, shall we say, a tapestry of running the football if we go back to the dominant Packers championship teams of yesteryear. So for me, that's who the hotshot is. We'll keep it moving. But the Dolphins, I think the lessons are starting to be learned. I think they're on the plane. They're on the plane back to that hometown to get that course correction they needed. But yeah, perhaps a necessary and substantial pivot from the aerial bombardment we saw earlier in the season.
So Florida man learns the true meaning of Christmas works for both of ours. Laz, next category.
Next category,
the couple pretending to get through the holidays that actually falls in love. I believe is where we're going next. The couple that pretends to get through the holidays, they actually fall in love.
Yeah. Tried and true. Mine. Go. Shoot.
And at first, I thought this may have been a stretch, but the more I dug into it, I feel good about it, Laz. It's Deontay Johnson and Matt Canada. Deontay Johnson, Pittsburgh wide receiver, had been saying he's frustrated with his role in his offense earlier in the year. Kenny Pickett even tacitly supported his wide receiver going against his offensive coordinator, the first-round pick, saying, we need to line Deontay up in more areas. He's a great playmaker. We need to get him the ball more often. And if you Google Matt Canada's name now, most of the stories are, can Matt Canada save his job? Well, the Steelers did get a road win on the weekend. Deontay Johnson going for a season-high 10 catches, a season-high 98 yards. Still has not yet found the end zone, but he was targeted 10 times for those 10 catches. That is the most targets without an incomplete pass for any receiver in the NFL this season. And the Steelers really grabbed hold of this game. First drive of the second half. Coming out of the locker room, teams have made their adjustments. They've had their halftime talk. Steelers go on a 21-play drive lasting 11 minutes and 43 seconds. Longest drive in the NFL this season. Total plays and time of possession on that drive. Deontay Johnson, 5 catches, of course, on 5 targets. So Laz, this pretend couple who's just been playing nice and saying, well, I'm frustrated with my lack of production. I don't really think I'm being schemed open and those sorts of things. it seems as though the sentiment of that it needs to turn, or the sentiment that it is turning, perhaps is authentic, and this couple may actually last.
Which would be an absolute stunner. Which, depending how cynical you are when you watch these
But again,
movies, sometimes
when
you
we're
are stunned.
going to the
Sometimes
Hallmark Channel here in the United States, sometimes I need a plot twist.
that's it. This is the version of the movie you watch when you're 20, 21 years old and you haven't watched 19 different iterations of this storyline. When, in the first 5 minutes, you look across the couch, whether you're watching with a partner, a buddy, whatever, and go, yeah, they're going to end up together. They're going to end up falling in love. This is earlier on when you just can't see how those two opposites could attract. But here we go. For me,
She's a small town girl. He's a big city lawyer. They're so common.
Oh my God, did you see what happened when she took off her beanie and her glasses? Whoa, who would have thought? Now we're just grabbing this 90s tropes from all over the place. We're getting into teen movies. It's all happening. She's all that. What? Anyway, for me.
She stumbles at a coffee shop in the tray of, yeah, okay.
You said coffee. The coffee's just hit me. Clearly, the flat white is now coursing through the veins. Okay. This one, we're joining the movie halfway through. This is in the opening scene. I think we're like kind of into the second stanza where you're starting. Even the thickest of movie watchers who aren't so savvy with the art of cinema are cottoning on that something could be happening here. And I'm going to the Detroit Lions. I'm going with Jared Goff, and I'm going with Dan Campbell. What appeared to be kind of a salary dump from the LA Rams and a pick haul, basically almost buying extra draft capital from the Detroit Lions has turned into so much more. Jared Goff, is he going to be the quarterback of the Detroit Lions in 3 years' time? No. Is he going to be in 1 year time? Increasingly, maybe yes, but we will see. But he has become so much more, and he's come to represent who this Lions team is in a fit and in a way that I don't think any of us could have predicted. Jared Goff, a talented thrower of the football, especially give him the opportunity behind a decent offensive line. Give him those weapons, which Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, the returning Jamison Williams. TJ Hawkins is no longer there. No worries. A running game that wasn't its most prolific against a tough Jets defense. Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift, neither really broke out in that game. But consistently week in, week out, give him a platform to work on. And it's got to be refreshing for Jared Goff as well. I think he has found himself in this unlikely couple being his best self, because if you date back to, there were some good moments, obviously, with the Rams. They made their run to the Super Bowl, but there were the early times of the Rams with the offensive line and the offense in general, and go back to his time at college. And the line he worked behind at Cal was porous, to say the least. He was battered and bruised by opposing defensive lines and defensive fronts over and over. Now he's sitting here well into his NFL career. He's been to a Super Bowl, and more often than that, he's been a punchline. And he's been put in this position that I think is far more stable and substantial in its foundation than he ever could have imagined. And I think, yeah, they are falling in love. Is this forever love? Maybe not. But is this a really great kind of 2 to 3 year relationship where both the Lions and Jared Goff, both members, come out of it as better people? And maybe not. Maybe it's not the forever love story, but maybe it's something that gets them to where they need to go. But undoubtedly, these guys are the surprising, this pairing, the Lions, Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. This pairing is as unlikely as it comes in terms of how fruitful it's been. And now you look at different metrics across the league with results starting to tumble out their way. We could very well be talking about meaningful January football for the fighting Detroit Lions.
They still would need some help, and Laz, it's because they started 1-6. We've only seen one team since the merger, and that was the year of the merger, 1970. A team start 1-6 and ultimately make the playoffs. But here the Lions are; they've won 6 of 7. And Laz, it's my Christmas movie category that I've added to the mix, and that is. And if you think about it, there's not going to necessarily be tree and lights and hooked around Christmas, but it's the type of movie that always seems to come out this time of year. And that's disguised royalty discovers its true identity.
Yes.
And that is the Detroit Lions, because if you strip the helmet of the logo and you just look at the pieces, a 28-year-old quarterback who's gotten to the pinnacle, the cusp, got to Super Bowl Sunday and fallen short. Now he gets a fresh start. Young, electric, skill position players, young, electric, edge rushers, capable young secondary that needs to gel. Laz, they all came together, and yet again, 15 pressures in this win over the Jets. The defensive line has been terrific. These pressures have gone up by 50% during this 7-game run, winning 6 of 7. And here they are. I mean, they're going to need some help to catch Washington. It seems will be the last spot, but somebody's going to get that 7 seed in the NFC. And if you look around in terms of the quality of football that's being played around the NFL, if I'm a 2 seed Minnesota Vikings, Detroit is the last team I want to see at home on Wild Card Weekend.
Absolutely. I think they in an NFC that is not full of kind of complete rosters or substantial heavyweights, outside of really the Philadelphia Eagles, and we expect that Jalen Hurts, there could be some resting over the next couple of weeks, but he'll be fit and firing for a dominant 1 seed. A dominant side of the ball could very well be enough to take over games. And this is a team that plays with a collective energy that kind of feeds off each other, and you can feel that throughout the game. You just hope that, obviously, it's not likely to find themselves in a home environment. If they do make their way to the playoffs, it's going to take a whole bunch of weird dominoes to fall to reach that. But to see fired up Detroit Lions fans going to any stadium across the NFC and their rivals and try and take over an environment and relish an opportunity that's so infrequent for that fan base would be fantastic to see. Okay, this is the People Show, so I want to open it up. We are getting some comments coming in, and we'll filter those throughout the show. But if you do, so far in our categories, we've had the small-time homecoming for the hotshot who learns more substantial things about what matters in life. We've had the bitter cynic who discovers the magic of the season. And we've had the couple pretending to get through the holidays, fall in love. If you have an NFL, these are our movie tropes, classic holiday movie cliches. If you have a player, a coach, a team, an NFL entity, the referees, who knows, that you feel falls in, although we're not getting into Grinches today. If you have any nominees that fall into that category, please submit them into the comments and we'll bring up the best ones.
Or disguised royalty discovers its true identity.
Or disguised royalty that discovers a true identity. An absolute belter there. I do want to call out a few that I've had sent in. The family going to pieces to sort it all out at Christmas. Got to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, right? Something you touched on, Phil. What's the course correction there? How do they rally around their football family? There's a couple of double entendres there that we don't need to get into, but that one sent in from the B League says, I like from ESPN Australia's very own Nick Webber sent in, sadly, the answer to the first 3 is Belichick, Brady, and Belichick in regards to the bitter cynic who discovers the magic of Christmas, small town homecoming, as you mentioned, and the pretend couple faking it to get through the holidays actually falls in love. I will say that speaking of ESPN's own Bill Barnwell did put out in his inimitable analysis and projections, he did mention that, do the Patriots give old Tommy a call this offseason, given how things are going? Which, I tell you what, as far as narratives and storylines go, and you and me love to have a good long brunch on Narrative Street, that would be one for the offseason. We have a couple more that we're going to get to just a little bit later, so I don't want to give away everything. Small Town Homecoming, Sean McVay and Baker Mayfield from Brad Bolt. The family going to pieces, the Raiders, although, the Raiders are in far better nick on this morning than some other teams, and we might touch on that a little bit later. Okay, let's get to our last one before I give away anything else. Our second to last one. The family going to pieces, but Christmas brings them all together. For me, and I'll throw out my one first here, and I think arguably no football operation is more intrinsically tied to the concept of family and relatives and sons and daughters than the Dallas Cowboys. The Jones family that sits across there. And when we talk about a family or an operation going to pieces, I think there are some big warning signs for the Dallas Cowboys. What happened against the Jacksonville Jaguars, despite what huge chunks of Twitter will say, no, that victory was not that defeat was not on Dak Prescott as a key reason at all. Did he throw a bad interception or a poorly timed and a poor decision-led interception earlier in that game? Yes, he also delivered with consistency and even some explosion, which isn't as much as Cowboys offense.
17 of his first 19.
There you go, 7 of his first 19, but this is a team that isn't the most, big over-the-top chunk yardage type offense, but a very potent offense that works its way with great rhythm, and he led that for huge chunks of that game. And a last interception, if you're out there thinking that last interception had anything to do with number 4, you're outing yourself as someone who maybe needs to look at the tape just a little more. But the areas that did come into concern for that Cowboys team against a red-hot top 6 quarterback in the NFL in Trevor Lawrence. We've mentioned it before, cornerback spot number 2. With Anthony Brown, who was not having a great season, with him out for the rest of the year with injury, you've got Kelvin Joseph standing in there, and the Jags, Doug Peterson, Trevor Lawrence, picked on him time and time again against good coaching stars and good quarterbacks the rest of the way, particularly in the playoffs. And the Cowboys have clinched courtesy of the Giants' win over the Commanders last night. Against those types of brains trust and pocket executors, you're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Teams will continue to target that. Not to mention, Leighton Vander Esch seems to have avoided a season-ending injury, but he will be out this week. So the core, he's playing phenomenal football. That spine in the middle, and that's not meant as a bad pun there, given it's a neck injury, but the spine of your defense takes another hit, particularly against the run and with communication. After Jonathan Hankins, who they just brought in to shore up that run defense, also exited. So we're starting to see some issues there. Tyler Smith in pass protection, maybe hitting a little bit of a rookie wall there as well. So that's the pieces
and
coming
not a good
apart.
opponent against Tomb to have issues stopping the run, Laurie.
No. And not just the Eagles coming up, right? But you've got the Titans on deck as well. And if the middle of your defensive line or defensive front is having some issues against the run, the Titans, we'll touch on their performance in a little bit. They've got a guy that can kind of pummel and break through and really make you pay on that front. But how does the family get it all back together? I think, is this a gathering around Christmas where, Jerry tells everybody that, as he said in his own words, he doesn't have time to have a bad time? Does he say, I don't know how many family Christmases, I've got left? Or in football terms, how many shots do I really get to make a deep playoff run? Hopefully many more to come for Jerry Jones, but he is not the young man or the younger man he was when he took over the Dallas Cowboys. Is it that type of speech that, gets the holiday tears going around the Dallas Cowboys Christmas table? Or is it something like, someone finds their old junior football up in the attic, takes it down and says, guys, let's go have a little throw around. Do the Cowboys grab a couple of footballs, head out to the empty training facility on one quiet morning, and put their cornerbacks through a absolute battery of drills and basically a winner takes all for, can we get someone professional playing at cornerback too? Because the level of play that Kelvin Joseph is offering is a huge weakness. Do you line up Joseph? Do you line up, they brought in Trayvon Mullen? Do you line up, they brought in Mackenzie Alexander? Do you call Terrence Newman, aged 53, and see if he's got anything left? Former Dallas Cowboy. And see if
he's not 53.
He's not 53, but you know what? He may offer more than Kelvin Joseph we saw this week, which has been a talented player, not delivering. But yes, that's my nominee for that long-winded answer there. But certainly, I think a family operation that's hitting some tough times, and they really do need that rally around the table, little reminiscing, a little bearing the hatchet, and fixing some of these weaknesses that are starting to poke up more glaring as we get towards January.
Laz, another franchise that prides itself on a family atmosphere, less literally than the Cowboys. The Baltimore Ravens are, for me, the family that's going to pieces, and they need the Christmas season to get it together. Baltimore's averaging 13 points per game in their last 3. They were beaten by a division rival, the Browns, 13-3, Saturday here in the U.S., Sunday, where you're watching. And certainly no Lamar Jackson. He's got a PCL sprain. He's still going to be shelved another couple weeks. Tyler Huntley's looking the part of backup quarterback. But, Laz, this is the Ravens' second half. 5 possessions. Interception, fumble lost, blocked field goal, turnover on downs. They didn't punt the ball once. They attempted 1 field goal, yet the game was in reach up until the final minutes. J.K. Dobbins was averaging 9.6 yards per carry. Gus Edmonds averaging 7.9 yards per carry. Very good numbers for running backs. They combined for 1 rush attempt in the fourth quarter, and it came at 14:54. So the second snap of the quarter was a 4-yard run to set up 2nd and 6, incomplete pass, blocked field goal. And then the last 2 series, it was Tyler Huntley averaging 3.8 yards per dropback that they were riding. This game was within reach. And I know a number of Baltimore supporters who are tearing their hair out at Greg Roman's play calling. Find something that works, and then let's go away from it. And I pointed out the Broncos at the top to juxtapose the fact that if you're running the ball on first down and getting 5 or 6 yards a carry, there's no need necessarily to completely deviate from that plan for the sake of balance, for the sake of parity. I don't know. But why I think the Ravens, the Christmas season is going to come together is just because I'm looking at the calendar. They're home to Atlanta, home to Pittsburgh, and then away to Cincinnati in the final week of the season, a game which could have low stakes if Cincinnati's already clinched the division and cannot catch either Kansas City or Buffalo ahead of them. That may be a situation in which Baltimore gets Joe Burrow in a hoodie on the sideline. And that is the dream for the Ravens, that they could play these games against two teams that are, Atlanta, I guess, is somehow in the playoff mix, but they're starting a rookie quarterback in his second or third career start. Pittsburgh, the Deontay Johnson thing, it's starting to sort itself out. But I think the Ravens at 9-4 will still find a way to get to 10 or 11 wins by default and get it to the wild card. Reset, Lamar Jackson comes back, LJ8, and if he is whatever bruises he had away from his knee, if he is a little bit more fit and a little bit more rested from all the hits he's taken early in the season, and with the opportunity, then all his chips are still on the table, betting on himself to get that mega contract extension. Maybe it is the Christmas season that brings together this family going to pieces, or a 4-letter word you used in the text to me when we were brainstorming this.
I'm just happy that's not what made it out on social media when I sent the questions out there to prep and get some fan participation in. Yeah, I like the layers to that one. Lamar Jackson.
4-letter word was poop. Everybody.
Yes, it was. Lamar Jackson easily falls into not the favorite child or something like that, but the most kind of the sibling in that family that everybody connects everybody and loves the most. And he's like, oh, Lamar's not coming to Christmas this year. He got tied up with work. He can't make it. And then it's 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and you hear a knock at the door and some snowy boots being kicked at the entry to the family home. And there it is. There he is coming through, and everyone's at the warmth just flows into the building there.
Or Sandy Thongs, if the exact story is playing out in Brisbane.
And you know what? How far have we moved in the past month or so, where we were talking about this AFC North run home, and that, look, the Bengals, they've got their stuff, they got it in order. They've got chemistry going in. We know the defense is well coached. The offense is getting healthy again. Look at this. Mixon's back. Chase is back. But the schedule, how are they going to catch the Ravens with the schedule? And now we're talking about, could the Bengals actually clinch before these two meet toe-to-toe again in Week 18? There's still some tough matchups left for the Bengals, but with the level of football they're playing, they'll be confident going anywhere, anytime, facing anyone. Okay, last one, and we'll get through this because we're almost in the 40-minute mark, and we've got a bit to do here. Okay, last one, quick one. Christmas movie time, Christmas movie staples, Christmas movie cliches. I don't care what anybody said, even their lead character from the movie, the lead character from the movie himself can say what he wants about whether this falls into Christmas category. But the John McClane. This is our final one. Who is playing the John McClane role? Who has the chance to overcome ridiculous hurdles, a lack of support, maybe just some plucky help here and there to overcome the fierce, well-financed and devious powers, the Hans Grubers of their division, of their conference? Who is that lone operator that you're looking at to take on that role? Phil, who is the John McClane the rest of this season? Which entity, which player, which coach maybe? Who fits that bill for you?
Well, if you look at the story arc of Die Hard or any real action movie, things are looking pretty dire about two-thirds of the way through the film, and then suddenly they take a turn, riding the hero to salvation or to safety or to whatever it might be. Take you back to Week 11, Laws.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the AFC South standings, the Titans were 7-3. The Jags were 3-7. Yet here we sit through Week 15, 4 weeks later. The Jacksonville Jaguars control their own destiny. If they win their last 3 games, they not only are in the playoffs, they will have a home playoff game as AFC South champions. The John McClane, who is taking out all the Hans Grubers he's facing. This week, I'm sorry, Laws, it was Mike McCarthy who was the Hans Gruber. Maybe Dan Quinn. It's Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is my John McClane. In his last 6 games, better than 70% passing. Over 6 games, 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, 280 yards a game. He is maturing before our eyes. I would say, dare I say, a top 7 quarterback in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence, maybe top 8. He is John McClain, and he could be the reason that the Jags, against all odds, don't die hard. No. They live on into the AFC playoffs.
Trevor Lawrence, top 6 quarterback in the NFL. John McClain, obviously top 6 action hero of all time. You're not alone there, though. Friend of the show, already brought up one of his comments today. Brad Bolt, that was his nominee. John McClain, Trevor Lawrence. Just a badass who gets the job done. Yes. He did throw in there as well the pretend couple that he had was Aaron Rodgers and Christian Watson, which
we will find out today with Jalen Ramsey blanketing Christian Watson.
Michael sent in that John McClain equals Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell will fire up Die Hard 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13, and 17 this holiday period if he gets the time, no doubt about it. For me, though, if I'm going John McClain mode here, solo, perhaps a little help from a plucky veteran that's seen some things. Phil, we talked about holiday indulgences when we were chatting yesterday and things that maybe I said I wasn't going to dabble in this season or allow myself to enjoy, just a bit of self-care. But you get to the holiday season, it starts to look just a little bit tempting. And that's Justin Herbert for me. I think he's getting just a little bit enough help, not to mention what's going on in the rest of the AFC, the 8-6 Chargers now. Justin Herbert's had some wow moments the last couple of weeks. Social media quarterback. Oh, he's nothing more than a toolsy guy. Oh, John McClain, he's just a cop. Oh, fish out of water in Los Angeles as well. See what I'm doing here? The Chargers being fish out of water in Los Angeles. It's so many tiers and layers, Phil. I don't know what else to tell you. But Justin Herbert, for me, has the absolute... John McClain had his weaponry, had his guts and glory in going barefoot through broken glass. And Justin Herbert has all the tools he needs, bad offensive line, going to get battered and bloody along the way. But now getting just enough help back with some of those receivers coming back to overcome the adversity and the serious potency of the AFC opponents and the bad guys in this. Not that I'd ever say Pat Mahomes is a Hans Gruber, but nonetheless, for me, I'm going turning straight there to the great young talent that resides in Los Angeles. No, not Baker Mayfield at quarterback for the Rams, but Justin Herbert. He gets the call. He is your John McClain, and he has that right arm. He's got the ability to tear through any defense that presents itself the rest of the way.
Well, Laz, I do fear, though, you look at the playoffs, and it seems as though that first-round matchup could very well be Chargers at Bengals, and then you will be torn the backing of Burrow versus Justin Herbert, or I mean, but then you look at or maybe they're the 7 seed, and then it's Justin Herbert at Arrowhead Stadium against the Chiefs. I mean, that's the one that there's really reason to be concerned about. But I mean, the AFC playoffs are going to be so enticing. You could get the Dolphins at the red hot Jaguars in January. We'll get there later on this year. But Laz, I want to shift to the one of the most unexpected finishes I've seen in the NFL. It was the talk of social media yesterday. It was a talk of post game. In case you missed it, I'll set the stage. Raiders, Patriots seem to be destined to playing for overtime. For whatever reason with the Raiders, it seems as though they're going to OT, like against the Chargers week 18 last year. OT is the last place we end up. The Patriots little dump down to Ramondre Stevenson. He gets 15 or so yards, laterals to Jacoby Myers. Clock is hitting 0. Patriots are nowhere near the end zone. Smart play, go down out of bounds. Jacoby Myers elects for the risky play, chucks it 20 yards back to Mac Jones back at his own 45-yard line. And then bada bing, bada boom, bada ba ba ba. Macca's I'm loving it. Our Macca's I'm loving it moment of the week, Laws. Chandler Jones, game-winning interception / fumble recovery. Stiff arms Mac Jones to the floor. A Big Mac stiff arms Mac Jones to the floor. Laws, in all of NFL history, taking away overtime walk-off wins, because it's like that score wins. Regulation clock hitting zeros. This is the second time ever we've had a go-ahead defensive touchdown on the final play. The Patriots actually got. It was the Patriots' first franchise win. The Patriots' first win of all time. A franchise that cynics will say is the luckiest franchise of the last 2 decades. Their first ever franchise win was a 52-yard fumble return by Chuck Shanta against the New York Titans, who became the New York Jets, in week 2 of 1960. That's the only thing we've seen that's comparable to what Chandler Jones did, the former Patriot, for the Raiders now against the Patriots. And Mac Jones, God bless him, we thought he had a bad day. 41.9% completion. It's the worst of his career. Start was 75% in the first quarter. And then 30% the rest of the way. Just when you think he couldn't hit rock bottom, God bless him, somebody handed Mac a shovel. And he just found a lower tier. Chandler Jones, as a neutral, gets you out of your seat. You're showing your phone to your friends. This is insane. You must see this, which is why it is, Laz, our Mac is I'm loving it moment of the week.
I mean, the layers to the enjoyment that the neutral fans had. The Raiders fans were losing it. Sam Bruce, resident ESPN, Australian, New Zealand rugby and MMA reporter, and tragic for the Las Vegas Raiders, was blowing up the Slack chat yesterday. Raiders fans, the autumn wind is a stiff arm, and that's exactly what Chandler Jones delivered to Mac Jones. He planted Mac Jones in the ground at that attempted tackle from the Patriots quarterback, and with it, the playoff hopes for the New England Patriots. With it, there any remaining optimism for the season. And look, Patriots fans, you're still 7-7. This is not truly how the other half lived. The other half often lived down at 4-win seasons and 3-win seasons and 5-win seasons. You still have a chance to have a winning record by the end of it. But compared to where they've been the last 2 decades, talk about loving it. The collective schadenfreude experienced by 30 other fan bases joining the Raiders to make it 31 out of 32 was palpable across social media, across your workplace, across the newsroom, across the media in general. It was one of the most memorable, bizarre, crazy, and enjoyable moments of football that just shows that, especially for a team like the Patriots that has been so buttoned down, the Patriot way, discipline, special teams execution, assignment sound football, the Belichick mantra over the past 2 decades, that this kind of, I wouldn't say bouncing ball because the ball never hit the turf after Jacoby Myers, sent that pretty impressive looking spiral. And he copped, fair to him, he copped responsibility and said, look, that was my bad. I was trying to make a play. Wasn't the plan. Tried to make something happen. Didn't go well. But just the different, the variables that had to go into that to give us that magical, comical, but beautiful moment, thoroughly enjoyable, a great way to kick off our Macca's I'm loving it moment of the week series the rest of the way this season. And this isn't just one of the moments of the week. This is one of the moments of the season, one of the moments of the decade. So far, it might be the craziest play of the millennium. And of course, it involved a franchise like the Raiders. Did it give them, full healing, and are they fully whole from the tuck rule against the Patriots? No, but for this one day, those fans, go look at the alternate angles, have a look at the unbridled joy on those Raiders fans as they experienced one of the rarest, as you mentioned. This does not happen with regularity. Just twice in modern NFL history have we seen this. Just enjoying the most special, bizarre, and unique moments and plays to occur on a football field. And what a great way to kick off. I'm loving it, Phil.
Yeah, Laz, and we had discussion and discourse about what, some plays that would work for this. And then that play happened. And, for a franchise in the Raiders that last year won so many close games, it's why they were able to punch above their weight class, get in the playoffs with an interim head coach who then was surprisingly sacked in favor of Josh McDaniels. He comes in, they're losing all these close games, and it seems like every bounce of the ball that could go their way just didn't, despite Devontae Adams coming in and performing. The team had actually taken a step back as the whole. So this is just an overdue exhale, sigh of relief, moment of elation. And now they can get back to, perhaps likely fruitlessly chasing a playoff berth in the AFC. But Laz, we did have another moment that made you take your cell phone, show a mate. It made you say, wow, have I seen this before? What's the precedent for this? But this is a weekly honor, and given the two, this category fits so much better for it. Our tag team champions of the world of the week. Now, Laz, once you step into the squared circle, you don't need to be the better outfit for the entirety of the match. You just need to hit your finishing move and get the pin and get off the mat with the belt in hand. And despite the Titans' loss to the Chargers, the alley-oop interception between rookie Roger McCreary and Joshua Kalu We're going to think of a nickname for this play. Alley-oop INT for me is a fine clubhouse leader. It reminded me, and again, this is against a quarterback, Justin Herbert, who this season to that point, 13 throws to the end zone ended up in touchdowns, 0 in interceptions. He was very economical when he said, I'm going to put the ball toward the painted grass and not intercept it. And to his credit, this was 2 yards out of bounds.
It was where you meant to send it.
This is where it should go. Put it to the sideline, throw it behind the official. Sure thing. Then Roger McCreary and Joshua Kalu combine for the doomsday device. Get the tables 3D. Pick your choice finisher. The heart attack, the Steiner DDT. What else do we got, Lost? McCreary jumps out of bounds whilst in midair, catches the ball, and before his feet hit the ground, tosses it to Joshua Kalu, who alertly gets 2 feet down, steps out of bounds, interception, touchback, Titans ball at the 20-yard line. One of the highest football IQ plays we'll see all season. And 2 guys doing it in synergy. That's what gets you the belt.
It's not what just gets you the belt. It's what gets you a lot of love in these parts down in Australasia and New Zealand, our brothers across the Tasman, and obviously here in Australia, because what immediately comes to mind there, you start thinking about the teamwork on, catches on the boundary that we've seen explode over the past 5 years, especially in the shortened versions of the game in cricket. We see 6 saving plays where a boundary fielder is falling over, has the ball in hands, leaps in the air, throws it up to somebody else, sometimes throws it up to himself. But in this occasion, throws it up to a teammate who's there, keeps his feet in bounds, secures the catch. Not 6 runs. It's a wicket. Not a touchdown, not 6 points. It's an interception. So it speaks to the people down here. It is, look, the Titans aren't the most Hollywood primetime, high-flying, glossy franchise across the NFL, but you'll earn yourself some fans down in these parts. Rugby fans that have sat there and watched, the All Blacks, send a penalty kick towards the corner for a 5-meter line out, only to see a little bit of teamwork from the Wallabies obviously in former years, to leap up, keep the ball in play, and avoid what was going to be a certain 5-7 pointer. This is speaking to the people down here, the Titans, McCreary, Kalu. You are speaking our language. Talk about your sports crossovers here. We're not going to give you the kangaroo hopping player of the week. We're going to give you something substantial that speaks to the sporting love in this country and over in New Zealand as well. And that's what these Titans gave us. So a big salute to the football IQ, something that was spoken about with someone like McCreary coming out of the draft. He was a very football intelligent player. That operated above his listed height and weight. So a phenomenal play. You feel for, my John McClain the rest of the way, Justin Herbert, in terms of where he put that ball, which was, high away, outside, safe. Not so safe when guys are operating at that level, but very much worthy of the gold this week, the 2 Titans.
Well, as further up in the draft, at 5 overall, was selected Kayvon Thibodeau. Edge rusher out of Oregon, all the measurables in the world. And he had perhaps his finest moment in the league and maybe even his finest game of the league in prime time on ESPN, Sunday Night Football here, Monday midday by you. He is our next gen player of the week, brought to you by the next gen Ford Everest. Conquer every day with the next gen Ford Everest. That award is going to the pickup truck who is Kayvon Thibodeau in a game with stakes. Last time Washington took the field was 2 weeks ago. They've had a bye in the interim. They tied the Giants 20-20, meaning these teams who came in level on the ladder, 7-5-1, whoever got this win not only moved a game up, but then would have the tiebreaker in hand with 3 games left. Barring calamity, that team is going to be higher in the wild card race. Kayvon Thibodeau said his mom called him before the game and put fire and passion inside of him. She said, "You can do anything you put your mind to." Not the most groundbreaking advice, but coming from that source, it revved up Kayvon Thibodeau's engine to a degree that we saw him not just finish with the game-high 12 tackles, not just finish with the game-high 3 tackles for loss, but as it was one moment, it was the hat trick turned ham bone where Thibodeau goes sack, forced fumble, fumble recovery, scoop and score, defensive touchdown to give the Giants the lead, their first score of the game, in a game they ultimately won 20-12.
This man, Kayvon Thibodeau, in the run-up to the draft, had he's phenomenal on the mic. He has a Showtime personality. He is not short on confidence. And I think some of that noise can distract people from what he offered on the field as a talent. And we saw every single bit of that last night. 12 total tackles, 9 solo efforts. You mentioned the sack, the tackle for loss, the hat trick there that led to the score. But there were some plays outside of that. With the way he dominated early and was just causing utter chaos and disruption in the Washington backfield, he could have had the second half off and he still might have been the best player on the field. Like Jahan Dotson certainly put his hand up and had us going back and forth. But what we saw a couple times outside of the tackle box, outside of just, sacks, pressures, quarterback hits, he got fooled. He came crashing down on what he thought was a run play. It was a keeper. And like 20 yards downfield, hunted down Taylor Heineke and delivered the tackle to stop whatever he could. That rallying, that's a combination of tenacity, determination, want to, with all the physical traits that he boasts. And then late in that game, with Washington driving, with a chance to tie it up if they get the touchdown and a 2-point conversion, once again, Taylor Heineke breaks out to the sideline, scrambling, looks like he's going to get in for a touchdown. Kayvon Thibodeau, who wasn't even on the line of scrimmage, had dropped into a coverage role, was not in shot for like any of the replays that we saw, not the broadcast count, not the sideline, not the goal line, not the slow-mo. He wasn't in shot, flies out of nowhere to knock him out at the 1-yard line. A couple of failed plays, we get a penalty later, and that becomes, instead of a touchdown and a 2-point opportunity that, with the way momentum was going, you would have backed the Commanders to convert. Instead of that, it's the Giants holding on. It's the Giants keeping a divisional rival, knocking their playoff chances down whilst massively boosting their own up as they get their 8th win on the season. This was from Kayvon Thibodeau, who's had plenty of moments so far throughout this season. This was an absolute breakout primetime moment for someone who has, yes, he's got the personality to light up and shine on that stage, but he's got the game to prove it. And it wasn't just, QB hunting, stat stuffing. It was that the full total package. It was playing outside the tackle box. It was running down plays and changing the game outside of your usual role. That was a total and utter complete showing from Thibodeau, and Giants fans have to be not just happy with the win, but everything they saw from number 5 against a nasty, fiercely fought against divisional rival.
He fits the identity of that team. He fits the desired identity of that defense, and he played to that identity yesterday. It's why he's our next gen player of the week, brought to you by the next gen Ford Everest. Conquer every day with the next gen Ford Everest. Laz, we're moving within 2.5 hours of kickoff, which means I need to bundle up and head across the street to the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field. And boy, is it frozen today. The temperature has risen to -8 Celsius. So maybe I'll be in shorts on the sideline as the Packers face the Rams. Two teams that in the preseason, the schedule makers, God bless them, they said, we're going to give you a December classic. The reigning Super Bowl champions against the 2-time reigning MVP. And technically that's still true. But it was also billed as potential playoff preview. That is highly unlikely. In fact, what is most likely is that we're going to be in a postseason without either the Rams or the Packers for the first time since 2008, when Aaron Rodgers was in his first season as starter, and the Rams were in St. Louis. So, Laz, with that in mind, let's take a look at where we could perhaps have a punt. And in a game it's functionally an elimination game. Both of these teams are mathematically alive, but their odds are mathematically remote. A loss here all but finishes either one of these teams. So, you made up 9/100ths of a unit last week. Congratulations to you. $1.96 bet hit for you. I hit $1.87 bet.
That's a Hanukkah miracle, my friend.
Negative on the week, still very much in the positive on the season. So, Laz, you are first to the tee box as we look at our propaganda for this Week 15 finale.
After that huge comeback last week where I've really made big strides and carved into your lead, the lead that I so willingly seemingly gave up, I am going to go to Aaron Rodgers. You mentioned the frigid conditions. It's -9 over there right now. This doesn't phase a player like Rodgers in, whether it's snow or the frost, and this is not something he's backed away from. Aaron Rodgers over 1.5 passing touchdowns. That is currently the outsider at $1.94. I'm taking that every single day. I think this Rams defense, the pass defense, is not the unit it has been in previous iterations. I think you can win matchups there despite the issues that the Packers have had at wide receiver throughout this season. I don't think this is going to be an overly high scoring game, and I'll get into some of the other strategies I think might play out. But Rodgers' ability to pick his spots in very familiar conditions against a team in LA that are not so well versed in playing in the frostiness. Give me Aaron Rodgers on the Tundra over 1.5 touchdowns. A mark he's hit in 3 of his last 4. It doesn't preclude any interceptions, and I love a thought about an interception market. But yeah, that's my opening one. As I continue to claw back 9 cents at a time, your bountiful advantage.
Okay, Laz. Well, if we both hit this, you'll claw back 3 cents. I'm also going with an Aaron Rodgers tip, but I'm going on the other side, and I'm not disagreeing with your logic in that he'll find the end zone multiple times. I could see Green Bay moving the ball down the field, and then the Rams still a very capable run defense. They're going to be going up against the bruising A.J. Dillon, who just presents problems, especially in this type of weather, in this environment. But I think in the red zone, Aaron Rodgers could go to the air and could find success with his arm. But over the course of the game, I am going Rodgers under 228.5 pass yards at $1.91. He's been under that total in each of the last 4 games. He's been under it in 6 of the last 7. He has not thrown for 300 yards all season. Now, again, 300 would blow this out of the water, but I do think it's going to be a game in which Rodgers ends up in that 195 to 220 range, and I think it's Jalen Ramsey slowing down that Christian Watson connection. So you're going to see perhaps more reliance on Allen Lazard as we've seen earlier in the season. And this is a Rams defense that held Derek Carr to 137 yards last week in far better conditions to throw a football. So all that considered, I'm going Rodgers under 228.5 at $1.91.
I see the thinking there. I see the brain cogs working there. And once again, I love it when you and me have a feel of how different teams are going to operate in certain conditions, and we get proven totally, utterly wrong in a couple hours' time. But on that, you mentioned the frostiness, and you mentioned A.J. Dillon's name, and that's the name I'm focusing on next. Combined rushing, receiving yardage, over 64.5 is the number at $1.88 for A.J. Dillon. I like that this gives me the opportunity that if he does break, if he gets a 5-yard, a little completion, a little dump off pass and breaks a few tackles in the nasty cold, that they can really elevate his total across the board. I'm not leaning one way or the other. It's a little bit game script, not impervious to game script, but it offers some flexibility depending how this thing plays out. But I think given how like the weapons that a Ramsey could take away, perhaps he takes away a Watson. I think against a Rams defense, you can look to take what they give you, but in minus conditions, whether there's snow or not, in frigid, frosty, icy conditions, the theory around this is basically around what would the opposition not want to do? And the Rams don't want to be tackling 250 or 260 pounds of A.J. Dillon in these conditions. That sounds awful. That tackling anyone doesn't sound great to me at 34 years old, but I gave away my exact age. But tackling anyone doesn't seem like great fun. But tackling that athletic prospect when your hands are frozen, when your arms are cold, when you got weird frosty goosebumps going on, where every little tiny nick on your arm feels like pain. Dropping the shoulder and trying to bring him down doesn't seem like fun. So that's the theory that I'm playing in here. What does the opposition not want to deal with? It's him going downhill. Let's load up A.J. Dillon over 64.5 total receiving rushing yards.
Laz, what was the market on that?
$1.88.
$1.88. Okay, so if we have not gone 4 for 4 yet this season.
As always, gamble responsibly.
We've gone 3-1 many a time. That's why we're up more than 3.5 units on the year collectively. So if we go 4 for 4 today, we're at $13.29 by my math. Gamble responsibly.
Sailing into the holiday.
Laz, I like 2 receivers markets. One counters the one I just picked. So this is not my tip. I'm just saying if you don't like betting quarterback unders, have a long think on the Allen Lazard over 42.5 receiving yards at $1.91. He's got over that in 6 of the last 7 games. And I think the thinking is Rodgers has chemistry with Christian Watson. But my thinking is that Jalen Ramsey is going to be assigned Christian Watson. It could free up Allen Lazard. So if you don't want to go under with Rodgers, over Lazard 42.5, and both of those are very much in range to hit. Lazard goes for 50. Doesn't necessarily mean Rodgers is going for 250. But my other tip, going to a receiver on the other side. Van Jefferson. One game with Baker Mayfield had a pretty significant catch. Over 18.5 yards for his longest reception is $1.88. Jefferson has eclipsed that 4 times in the last 5 games. He's likely to be lined up against Jair Alexander for much of proceedings. Jair Alexander has been rightfully picked on. All it takes on an icy ground is one slip of a route, one catch, 19 yards, one catch, 20 yards, what Jefferson has done 4 times in the last 5 games, and this hits. Over 18.5 for the longest reception, Van Jefferson at $1.88. Laz, that means if you put 1 unit down for all 4 of our wagers, put it into multi, $13.29. Please gamble responsibly.
Slipping footing, Baker Mayfield, Aaron Rodgers, snow, frozen tundra, AJ Dillon's the Thigh Master or whatever other nickname he gets to boast. What better way to cap off just the most ridiculous and enjoyable, in my opinion, week of the NFL season, despite what happened to that team that I happen to barrack for out of North Texas. To close, because this is the People Show, I want to bring up 2 comments. One from Jill on Twitter, who threw in that she doesn't know anything about football, but this was a whole lot of fun. Thank you, Jill. We're glad you enjoyed. Doesn't matter how much football you do or don't know or think you don't. Always welcome on the Brekkie Show, the NFL Brekkie Show here. And finally, Brad just wanted to say, in all fairness, back to the Raiders and the Patriots, it was a dime if Jacoby was trying to throw it to Chandler Jones, didn't have to break stride, hit him in the hands, high-pointed it, and clear and obvious yak Mac opportunity, roll him out at quarterback next week. What better way to sign off for the week, Phil, as I let you land the ship, bring us into harbor, whatever mixed metaphor I can throw out there, and we get out of here and you go, was it boardies and a pair of Havanas that you're throwing on down for the sideline today?
Well, as I'm throwing on all sorts of layers to be down on the sideline today at Lambeau Field, forecast has improved. Originally, it was minus 13 Celsius. Again, it is basically tropical at minus 8 as we head to kickoff, but the sun goes down, so it's going to be all kind of the same. I will be gathered around heaters. Thankfully, I will say, players tend to be very generous with heaters directed to their space. Typically, they see us media types absolutely frozen, and they invite us over to stand around heaters and just stay warm on the sideline. So thank you to all the players in the past, and thank you in advance to Alan Lazard, or who I tipped to go over 42.5 yards. So maybe I'll have a chat with him. I'm kidding. But we're gonna be huddled on the sidelines and enjoying what is functionally an elimination game. It's a game of consequence, just not that which the NFL thought when the schedule was made. It kicks off at noon on ESPN if you're watching in Sydney and Melbourne. Check local listings for all of you who decide not to adhere to daylight savings time. This has been the NFL Brekkie Show presented by the Next Gen Ford Everest. Conquer every day in the Next Gen Ford Everest. That man is Laurie Horesh. I am Phil Murphy. Thank you for watching. We will see you next week.